Thank you, Pastor Oliver, for this opportunity this morning just to share with everyone what happened in our lives 6 weeks ago. I think before I start, I just want to set a bit of the stage of what happened that particular weekend. It was the 27th of April, but I'm going to go back to the 26th. On the 26th, we were in Brakpan at the time, busy with home affairs, and I got a telephone call to say on the property a massive branch had fallen and damaged the power line. And I said, okay, fine, we'll deal with it when we get back. And we sorted out, we tried a couple of things remotely, but we couldn't get it sorted, so we left it there. And later that afternoon, the guys from Power, Electricity, Ekurhuleni came through, and they had a look, and they tried to repair the line. And when they got the one side up and pulled it too tight to the other side, this side snapped. And they did it the other way, and eventually they said, no, look, cable's too short, we're going to have to bring a new cable in tomorrow. So I said, that's fine, let's do it like that. So, Friday morning, the 27th, I got up and we were planning for a very busy day. And I said to Debbie at the time, look, I'm not going to leave the guys just to carry on. I'll be out there with them for a while. And just watch and try and get things sorted and working. And while I was there, I was out at the chicken houses and busy looking. And I looked up and I looked down the line of where this power line was. And I saw this tree hanging straight over the lines like that, but it was hanging, leaning very bad. And it would fall very shortly from the way it was hanging and so on there. So I decided that the right thing to do would be cut it down before they put the new cable up so we don't create more damage later on. Had I known that morning what was going to happen, and I can honestly say there's only one person that I know in this world that has got the true full picture of everything, and that's Jesus. But in this particular day, I had no idea, no foresight what was going to happen a couple of minutes, hours later from there. But I decided that morning that what I'll do is, instead of just going ahead, it was around about 7 o'clock in the morning, and instead of going ahead and just cutting the tree, I'll wait for the guys from the power lines to come through as well, and then we can cut the tree and move it out the way quickly and just carry on from there. That's firstly something that I would usually not do. I would just get in, do it, and get it done, so that it's done when they arrive there. That to me is the first sign of a miracle, that God had a plan, He had a purpose for that day and the days that play out from there onwards. In any case, I waited, and the guys eventually arrived, and they arrived with a truck and a new roll of cable, and on the back of the truck was a crane. And discussed the tree with them and everything, and we had a look and we said, no, it's the right thing to do, let's cut this tree down. And it basically had 3 arms hanging over. So I went, got the chainsaw, filled it up with fuel, started, cut the first branch, no problem. At this point, that is the last time that I remember anything from that day forward for a couple of days. But basically what happened after that is we cut the second arm down fine. And the third arm being the biggest, that tree, or that arm is about 80 centimeters in diameter, which is approximately like that. I got in and I started cutting this tree, and looking at it now afterwards, everything was done right, according to normal standards, as far as cutting that tree down. But what happened is, while I was cutting it, it was actually in the process of falling. We were so close to actually getting a clean cut through and it falling. And I was cutting it approximately this high. Around about 2 meters higher up, there was a weak spot. And the tree, because of the angle and everything, it kicked out. And on it kicking out like that, its tail end that I was cutting here flicked up and hit me on the head and knocked me out. I landed on the ground, face down, and the tree, approximately 20 tons, landed on top of me. At that point, I was not aware of anything. All I can say is that it was truly God that was there with me. At this point, I want to actually just bring Debbie in. She was there, she saw the rest. And I don't want to miss out any points of what God did that day. So I'm going to ask her just to carry on with the story for a while.
Yeah, I was busy in the bedroom. I was still in my pajamas. And I heard the chainsaw going, so I thought, oh, there's Darren making hay while the sun shines. Typical Darren with the chainsaw. And first round, I looked out the kitchen window and I saw him with his hard hat on. And I saw these branches falling. Went back to the room and then I heard, which we've had, the blue gums are very, very weak trees and we've had one fall before. So when it fell, it's like a roaring thunder. It's like, God, wow, this heavy sound of the tree landing. And I thought, oh, okay. Darren's chopped an entire tree down. And Jaden had his little friend there, Matthew, his little friend there, had slept over from Thursday night. And they were sitting in the lounge. And from the kitchen, I could view the tree, and him from the lounge and his friend could also view the tree. And I still looked out, and I saw the three guys from Ikuruleni just pacing. And I still in me, I said to Jaden, I said, where is Dad? And Jaden said to me, Dad's there. I said, no, Jay, where is Dad? And eventually one of the guys came walking towards us, but not in any haste, which I couldn't understand. And he just said to Jaden, call the ambulance, the tree has fallen on him. And at that point, I think people handle crises and circumstances differently, and I just went into complete panic mode. I was trying to phone people and dial people. I got hold of Alison. She lives in the little flat next door, and I went in and I said, Alison, the tree's fallen on Darren. And if it wasn't for Alison and for Jaden, my boy, he handled everything so calmly. They went straight to Darren, and according to Alison, he had been pegged down on a piece of branch, and when she pulled him back, there was a big hole in his chest. And when I came round and I looked down at Darren, there was the most awful, and it still rings in my head, the most awful gurgling sound coming from his chest and his lungs. And there was pink blood and foam coming out of his nose and his mouth. And Alison said when she held his head, she said it just swelled and swelled and swelled. And eventually he stopped breathing, he went blue. So she just called and she said, Lord, what do I do now? And she managed to tilt him to his side, and then he started breathing again. And the two guys, one of the two guys from Ikuruleni, she just looked up at them and she said, do you believe in Jesus? And they had big eyes, and she said, do you believe in Jesus? And she said, start praying. And these guys started praying, and I got hold of all the family. Alison got hold of Gareth Lomas, if you know that he's a paramedic. And I don't know if you remember Sarita and Greg. Greg's also a paramedic. There's Greg. There's Gareth sitting over there. Yeah, Gareth can actually give account of all the things that had happened there. Eventually, 2 ambulances arrived and 2 response cars arrived. But I had no idea to the degree of the damage that had been done to Darren. I was just in panic mode, and I was just trying to get hold of everybody, phoning, so that I told them to come now, because it's bad. And on loading him into the ambulance, Gareth, I think it's a P4. I'll let Darren explain that to you. But apparently Jaden's little friend Matthew was right there, and I just looked at this young boy's face and he was in tears. When he got fetched by his mom, he said to his mom, Mom, Uncle Darren is dead. I think he heard the paramedics say that it was a very bad case. And he said, Mom, Darren is dead. Uncle Darren is dead. And got into the response car with with Greg. And Greg just looked at me and he said, Debbie, close your eyes, I'm going to pray. And he prayed all the way to the hospital. But at the same time, on scene, with everything that was happening, the franticness and the horror of the whole situation, there was my mom-in-law, my father-in-law were there. I called Ollie. Ollie arrived there in a split second. My niece and her husband, Demi and Jared, were there. Greg is a Christian. Gareth is a Christian, and when Alison looked up, she says at one point, all she just saw was people's hands in the air and just pray. So I truly believe that once the message had got out, it went viral, it went overseas in an instant. The prayers of the people of God, prayers of the family of God, is what carried and brought Darren back to life. Well, obviously Jesus, he's done the work, but I think with all the prayer that had gone up, there was just, on site there, on the plot, there was just an atmosphere of prayer and peace. And my niece actually, when Darren was eventually in the ambulance, and they pulled out and they drove up the road, because you can see through the game fence, she says in her mind's eye, in the spirit, she actually saw the ambulance had this bright light around it. And she just saw it almost as if it was like wings. And I truly believe that punctured lung, which the paramedic said there was a punctured lung, and Alison witnessed and Jaden saw that there was a hole in his chest, I believe that the surgery, the heavenly godly surgery, had taken place in the ambulance already. And by the time we got to the hospital, excuse me, in the trauma room, they only let us in there one by one, but they were working on it for quite a while before they even let me go in, and I just witnessing Darren lying there with all these machines attached to him. I just had to just lean upon what God had promised and lean upon the peace that He'd given me in my heart that things were going to be okay. You know, when the doctor came out, she sat there next to me. And we were at the Tama Memorial, which is the old BBH hospital. And the doctor came out, an Indian lady, and she looked at me and she said, Mrs. Staines, we have stabilized Mr. Staines. And all I said to her was, how is his punctured lung, doctor? And she said to me, she looked at me quite strangely, and she said to me, we've done scans, we've done x-rays, we've done sonars, and they're very accurate. She says, Mrs. Staines, there is no punctured lung. So another miracle, I looked, and I thought, oh, Lord, just the breather. And I said, and what about his head? She said, yes, Mrs. Staines, his head is a problem. We just got it stabilized. It is a bit swollen, but we need his blood pressure to go down before we can send him for a CT scan. So the continual moment of panic to a certain degree, but also a certain degree of just trusting and believing, saying, Father, it's not Darren's time now. And the fact that the hole wasn't there, I actually went to go and look. Alison said to me, go and have a look at his chest. Take a picture of the hole. And I took a picture and there was no hole there. So God had mended and He had restored and He had healed the hole and the ruptured lung. But now the next concern was Darren's head, where an entire tree had fallen upon it. And it took a whole day, and they eventually, we got everybody to pray, to say, please, his blood pressure has to normalize before they can move him to check for the CT scan. Once they called us and they said, we reeled him in quickly because he's stabilized to a certain degree. It was a big long wait. Because it's a government hospital, and there's a lot of patients and there's a lot of queue, we just had to wait and wait. So I think he went in at about 1:30 for the CT scan. And only 8 o'clock that night, just the sitting and the waiting and the praying and the believing. And I can honestly say, my phone, my WhatsApp, was a lifeline from friends and family, with all the prayers. If it wasn't for that, I don't know how we would have survived. Just waiting, and then eventually the little sister came and she called me, but she had a smile on her face. I said to her, "Did you get the results?" She said, "Yes, just come with me." Went into the trauma unit, and a little junior neurosurgeon looked at me and she said to me, "Mrs. Staines, I'm a junior neurosurgeon, so I'm going to give you what I read on the report, but we have to get what confirmation from the senior neurosurgeon at the Joburg Gene before I can give a proper diagnosis on his brain." So I said, "Okay." So she looked down, she looked at the paper and she said, "Mrs. Staines, I'm looking at it and I see no brain abnormalities in Mr. Staines' brain," which alone is utterly impossible if you know that a tree had fallen in his head. So another miracle received. And then with him being out the whole time, eventually they transferred, that Friday night, there was no beds in ICU, which in my heart was actually just a relief, because in trauma unit they were manned, he was manned and scanned and checked, and they had somebody around him all the time checking on him. And eventually when we got home that night at about 10:30, 11, the doctor phoned me and she said to me, "Mrs. Staines, I just want to confirm we got back from the senior neurosurgeons that Darren's brain is normal. There's no abnormalities." So just in the bed, they're lying and saying, "Thank you, Father, for that." And then she said to me, "But," she said, "we've got problems. We're not sure why his blood pressure is so erratic. And his lactose is 9, which should be 2. But," she said, "I need your permission just to cut and see inside whether there's any leaking or any bleeding." So I had to make the decision, and I said to her, "Okay, yes, go ahead." And she said, "We can cut and we can see something, or we cannot see something." So there again, I just sent out and said, "Please pray." And 1:30 that morning, she phoned me back and she said to me, "Mrs. Staines, we have done the operation and we have found no bleeding, no abnormalities." Again, another miracle. He was moved out of trauma unit into the ICU. And in ICU, because now we hadn't seen him awake yet, and I remember going in with Jaden, and he was lying there with a mask on and all the machines stopped. And he opened his eye, and it was the first time I actually saw the eye, which looked so bad. It was just filled with blood, and it was yellow, like a deep mustard yellow. And when he looked at me, I was like, "Yo," in a little bit of a shock. But he was so drugged up and so full of medication. And he said something under the mask, and I leaned down and I said to him, "What was that?" And he said to me, "Where is the chainsaw?" I thought, "Oh God, not even in all of this panic and presence. Yeah, my husband's worried about his tool. He's telling me, where's the chainsaw?" But I looked at him and I said to him, "But your eye," I said, "can you see out of the eye?" And there too, also just a giggle in the ICU. He just closed the one eye, looked at Jaden with that eye. He looked at him, turned and looked at me, and he said, he just nodded his head, and you can see out of the eye. And it took, if you look at that eye, I thought, I don't know if he's going to be able to see out of it. And he did. He says he saw quite a bit of haziness and blurriness. But over the 6-week period, it's just completely restored itself, which is another miracle. And him waking up eventually in ICU, they transferred him through to the ward. And then from there, I would want Darren to share from his experience at the ward.
Thank you. Just a few things back, which Debbie asked me just to clarify from at the tree site. Once a tree had landed on me, and Alison was there, before she could roll me over, they actually needed to get the crane from the truck to lift the tree off of me. And something which I learned through Errol and Denise 2 weeks ago is that when something of that weight is on your body and you release that weight, There's a medical term, and I hope I get it right, it's called crush syndrome, I think it is. And basically what that is when your body is crushed like that, all the toxins in your body get released. And when that weight is lifted, it rushes through to your vital organs, kidneys, liver, and you die within seconds. And that's another miracle. Debbie and Alison and the guys on the site at the time had no idea that this was something that could happen. And they just insisted to get the tree off of me at that time. And by that time, when they managed to get it off, it had been on me for about 17 minutes. And through that time, a lot of the time, I was unable to breathe. I'd gone through all the symptoms and signs of the brain damage. And as one of the doctors said to my mom a couple of weeks later when we were having her stitches attended to, is that one of the miracles, after 4 minutes of no breathing, you die. And when the paramedics got on site, they have to do an assessment of their patient just to see what sort of status that person is in. And at that point on the assessment, I was given a 3 out of 50, which is not good, it's bad. And by the time they had loaded me into the ambulance, I'd gone to a 0 out of 15 P4. And one of these other medical terms that I had to go and find out what it meant, P4 is deceased. It's a status that the medics can basically say that that person is deceased, but they cannot call it. A doctor has to call the deceased status. So they put me as a P4. And once the ambulance had left, I'm not too sure exactly how far away it was, but after Debbie had mentioned about the angels around the ambulance and that, this tree, with the crane still holding it, because what they did is they picked the tree up, and then the medics had time to get in underneath and work and get me out and sort everything out. And once the ambulance had actually left, this crane broke and the tree fell again. And I just thank God, because if that had been a few minutes earlier, it could have been more than just me underneath that tree. It could have been a whole team of medics, etc. But looking at it as well, when the ambulance left, the angels were with me in the ambulance. And at that point, I believe that's when the Lord said, okay, we're done with this site. And he took his hand away, which was holding that tree. He took his hand away, and that's why that crane fell and broke. And the tree fell. Coming to the hospital now, I woke up Sunday afternoon around about 1, 2 o'clock in the afternoon. I had no idea where or why I was there. I lay in the hospital. I figured out eventually after a while that, okay, I'm in a hospital. I didn't know what day it was. I didn't know why I was there. I didn't know where I was. But I was there. And eventually I asked one of the sisters to try and explain it. She said to me, look, a tree has fallen on me, and I was in the Tampa Memorial Hospital and all of that. It still didn't make any sense, because I had no recollection of cutting this tree. In any case, all I knew is I was in a lot of pain. My back, my chest, the wound where they cut me, my head. I had no idea of my eye that was filled with blood at that point and so on. And I think it's 3 o'clock is visiting hours. My folks came in, and everyone came in. And my brother and Debs and Jaden, I can't remember. Yes, there was Pastor Ollie, and a couple of other people that were there. And it was just so good to see people just gathered around. And everyone was talking and just filling me in on what happened and telling me everything of what Debbie has shared now and so on. And I just sat there and it was like, wow. And they left, and now you've got the silence, and it's just the hospital again going on. I lay there and I said, Lord, why is it that I was removed? This whole incident has been removed from me, and I have no recollection of anything from that Friday morning until Sunday afternoon. To this day, it's blank. I've got nothing wanted to say that's come back. And God just turned around to me and He said to me that it was not my fight, it was His. He had to take me through a walk. And just lead me. And walk with me. Because if I had to do it, I would have failed. But God walked with me. He took me through this. It was a 6-week. Fridays were 6 weeks. All I can say is that every day, since that Sunday, God has just been so real. He's drawn so close to me. I've drawn so close to Him. In this time period, as I said earlier, I had known on that Friday morning that I was going to have 20 tons on my back, on my head. I don't think I would have picked up that chainsaw. In fact, I know I wouldn't have. But at that time, I know, standing here now today, I know that everything that happened then to now is all part of God's plan. I spent some time with the Lord. Once I got home, I was unable to, for 6 weeks, do anything. I had to lie on the bed, lie on the couch. I thank my wife, my family, and so many families in this church that just supported us with so much food, visiting, just blessings upon blessings. And the only thing I could do when there was no one there was just lie on the couch, spend time in God's Word, spend time in prayer with Him. And recently, God showed me something. And He said to me, our lives we're caged in, we're locked in. He took me to the story of Joseph with his color coat. And his father had stitched that coat for him as an atonement for his love. But his family stripped him of it. His brothers stripped him of it. And they threw him in a well. That was the first time that Joseph was in a place of bondage, captured. From there he was sold into slavery. And in that slavery, going back just before all of this, Joseph had a dream. And he shared that dream with his family, and that's why they stripped him and threw him in the well, because they were concerned about what the outcome would be. But God showed me that through everything that happened, He was the key. Joseph was the key to his freedom. And through that time period, the only thing that he had was a blank. And if you put a blank into any lock, it won't work. It has to be cut first. And there's only one person that can cut the key, and that's a locksmith. And our Heavenly Father is our locksmith. And He starts to work. And any of you that have had a key cut at a locksmith, you know, when they take that blank and they clamp it, and they put it into the machine to cut it, it's a terrible sound. But it's metal upon metal, metal cutting metal. And eventually that key gets taken out and gets tested, and eventually, when it is cut perfectly, it will open the lock. Sometimes when we go and our lock is opened, and we are able to step forth into freedom, and we're set free, our lock that is open might be the key to unlock someone else's lock as well. Through what we've got might be the key that's helped someone else in their situation. And I just believe that this whole situation that we have gone through, with everything that has happened, and the key being cut, me being able to step out in freedom, is a situation where that situation can be used to the benefit of so many others. I know that everything that God has taken us through during this time, in this 6 weeks, has been a cutting process, a testing process. And without the test, we have no testimony. But I know that God has taken me through this test. He's taken my family through this test. He's taken everyone sitting here that has walked with us through this test, so that we can come out victorious on the other side. At this point, I just want to ask Debbie, she's got a song that we'd like to play, and I just want her to intro that for us quickly, please.
I think of Pastor Oli, Limit Exceeded. Your theme for this year, in our lives on the 26th of April, we could never have expected God's limit exceeded in us to such a degree. We are in awe of, Darren and I actually lay in bed the other night, and he said to me, how many miracles did God perform over that 4-day period? And we actually counted 14. 14 miracles that God had performed. And the fact that Darren has been risen from death, and he's alive and he's standing here today to speak of God's glory. So I just want to say we must not limit God in what he can exceedingly abundantly do in our lives, in our circumstances, on where we're at, what we're facing. Besides what happened to Darren, Darren and I have been going through a very hard 2 years. But as Darren has said, the key has been molded and has been cut to fit into a perfect lock for a perfect door that God has for us to open. So I just want to say and give God all the glory, give Jesus all the honor and the glory for sparing my husband, for the family in this church that has stood by us, and for what God has done in our little family in bringing us all close together to such a degree that we are only expecting now limits to be exceeded in our lives for things that we're believing for in faith. Expect miracles from God. I still remember saying on the WhatsApp, which I felt the Holy Spirit was saying, the miracles that had been done in Darren's body and over the whole incident, I believe that it's the time that has become now in these last days, that God is going to show himself. He can show himself in each and every one of your lives if you believe for the miracles that you need. Believe for them. Let those limits be exceeded according to his word and his power in you. So this song is Casting Crowds. It's always been my favorite band. And it's just to say that it's all about Jesus.
Leave a mark, build a name for yourself, dream your dreams, chase your